Hey everyone, welcome back to the Monday Drive. We are currently in our mission partner series, so we're going to go every single week and get to meet a new mission partner here of ours at Riverside Church. And so this week we're diving in with the Imagine Initiative with our very own Rhonda. And so many of you guys know her, so it'll be fun to be able to chat and get to know her more and get to hear more about your heart. So thank you for being here. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit, some people know because you were on stage, we just launched, and so you're our newest mission partner, which is awesome. But some people know the stuff we've done with Edgewood. So tell us about Imagine, tell us about you, your family, introduce us a little bit.
Yeah, my name's Rhonda Dahlin. We've been in Fort Myers for 3.5 years now. We love the area. The Imagine Initiative is something that I never imagined would happen, not to overuse that word, but really, all I can say is it's a God-given vision. The purpose of Imagine is to bring hope, help, and healing to churches and their surrounding community all the time. I mean, you just have to watch the news for one night to see that there's discouragement with teachers, there's issues with school, there's just a lot of things. I mean, school shootings, unfortunately. So we have a lot of cultural challenges with schools. And more and more, I'm seeing the power that and what God can do when a church engages in a school in a relational way that leads to transformation. I think a lot of times churches engage in schools, but it's very surface level. So what would it look like if churches engage in schools in a relational way that leads to transformation? And that's really what the Imagine Initiative is for. We want to see churches catching the vision, being resourced, and feeling supported as they engage in schools in their community. And really, I have been given the vision, and I'm so excited about it. 95 by 33. So by 2033, that's 10 years from now, we'll have all 95 public schools in Lee County will have a church engaged with them in a meaningful way.
I love it. A God-sized dream, and that's awesome. Cool. So as you were thinking about launching Imagine, so I know you started being involved with what we do at Edgewood. You kind of championed that for us at Edgewood School. Tell us a little bit about how you go from doing that, you're just in our church, you're leading the efforts at Edgewood, to diving all in with Imagine full-time. What was that like?
Yeah, so I had another full-time job that I loved and adored, and it was, I always told people I'll never leave this job. I just love it. But as part of being part of the Riverside community, I wanted to get engaged, and missions has always been the place where I've been engaged, and so started leading at Edgewood, and God just kept doing things faster and bigger than we ever expected. I mean, Matt, I remember you and I sitting down and thinking, oh, what if these things could happen in the next 5 years? And by the first 6 months, we were saying God's done everything we imagined would take 5 years. He's accomplished in 6 months. And so we started to get to dream bigger. And the reality was I started having this vision of what it would look like, not just to be more deeply engaged in Edgewood, but to be engaged in the Edgewood community, to grow outside the walls of the school, to really be engaged with the families of the students, to be able to be in relationship with them and earn the right to share the gospel by meeting real needs that they have. It's funny how God works, because I was developing this vision. No, God was giving me the vision, and I was developing it in my head. And for months, I kept praying for God to raise up somebody to lead and to step into leading this vision. And I was really on the hunt for somebody. I was praying that God would bring the right person. I would even sit sometimes on Sunday mornings, and I'd look around. I'm like, Lord, I know that you have somebody in here in Riverside that's going to answer this call. Awesome. And then ironically enough, I was sitting in a I worked for a mission agency at the time, and I was sitting in a training that we were having for our missionaries. And all of the teachers were just talking about, how do you get in relationship? How do you do discipleship? How do you engage people with the gospel? People that are culturally different than us, and whether that means that they are an immigrant from another community or just grew up very different from us, because the world is changing. And my heart just started, something happened. And the Lord was tapping me on the shoulder and said, it's you. You've been praying for somebody. You've been asking, praying, begging for somebody, for me to raise up somebody to lead this. And I have. It's just not what you expected. It's you. And I'd like to say that I was like, yes, Lord, thank you for the green light. But I was really honestly freaked out. And I came home from that trip and I talked to Peter, that's my husband, and he was equally as freaked out, because this was a big step of faith to go from a position where I got a salary and retirement benefits and health care and, all the things, like I could pay my mortgage, to go to a place where it was, I'm raising support and stepping out there. And it was a big step of faith. But God was very faithful to lead me through each question I had. And I feel like he was very gentle and more patient with me than he probably needed to be, because he just kept showing up and he kept giving me confirmations that I didn't even ask for. I mean, I would go and I would meet people, and I'd have a meeting about something else, and they'd want to talk about something about Imagine, which they didn't even know what Imagine was or that it existed, but God just kept giving confirmation after confirmation. So it was really a beautiful time. It was a scary time. But Matt, I remember when I finally called you and I said, Matt, here's what I feel like God's been saying. Do you remember what you told me?
I think I said I've known that all along.
You did.
Yeah. I thought that from the beginning. Yeah.
You said, I've just been waiting for you to come to the realization. But so it wasn't overnight. It wasn't immediate. God just kept leading me, the next step, the next step, the next step, and it grew, which I think is really beautiful. God does that. He doesn't show us the whole path. He just wants our yes. And we step into the first yes, and he's very faithful, and he leads us to the next one and the next one, and it grows oftentimes bigger than we ever imagined.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think about a lot in our church, and I think about just different people and some of the stories that we get to hear all the time. But I think a lot of times it happens like that. And even the last couple of weeks on this podcast with the different mission partners that we've had, it hasn't been this like, oh, boom, it's been this slow progression, and somebody said something, somebody prayed this, and then the Lord did this, and then it, over a long time. And I love how the Lord's just patient in that, and also kind of like just slowly nudges towards things. It's been cool to hear. So that's awesome to hear your story. What are the challenges that you've faced? So I know that anytime you're in ministry, there's challenges. Anytime in any job, but ministry, there's always challenges. You specifically are trying to take a gospel-centered thing and put it into public schools, partnering with public schools to reach the actual families. So, I mean, that's got to be a lot of closed doors. How does that happen? What are the hurdles that you faced and walked through?
Yeah, several hurdles. One, it's bringing churches together. I think churches, we can get into either just our lane or our denominational bubble, and sometimes we don't look outside at what other churches are doing. And I don't think it's with any kind of malice. I just think that, we get in our lane and we go there. And so bringing churches together, I think, is one of the huge first challenges. But the cities that I have seen churches work together, God is exploding and doing big things. And so I'm excited. We're in the process of casting vision, and I'm having conversations with pastors, and starting to have meetings with churches and mission pastors to say, what if? And it's fun because as I have the conversations, other people are having that same nudging. What if we all start working together? What more is coming?
Yep.
So I think the time is right. I feel like God has prepped the ground for that. But the fact is, it's still a challenge to get into churches, to get pastors' ears, to get the right person's ear in a church to say, how can we work together? Getting into the schools, I thought would be a big challenge. It turns out schools are very pragmatic and they have a lot of needs. And if you have a very humble posture of saying, how can we serve you? Not coming with, we don't come with an agenda or this is what we want to do, but how can we serve you? And then actually delivering on the promises. I think that's the key for schools. For me, if I'm just being frank, the challenge right now for me is I have schools saying, we need help. How can we get the help? And right now I'm one person. And so it's a bandwidth issue at this point of really setting things up so they can multiply beyond myself. But I think those are the two biggest things that are the challenge right now.
Yeah. I remember we were meeting with Edgewood early on, and I remember you were talking about just we want to under-promise, over-deliver. And I think that was, as you look back on it, you could probably armchair quarterback and whatever, but you look back, and I think that was a key piece. And I imagine a key piece for any church trying to do this. I think that a lot of people, especially schools, are maybe a little disenchanted or, with the churches or faith organizations or even volunteers coming in and saying, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to come do this after school program or whatever it is.
Right.
And I think not showing up or not following through has kind of put a bad taste in their mouths. Yeah. And so I think what you have been able to lead through Edgewood, just the consistency that you have been able to lead through the team, I think has earned you a ton of respect and rapport at that school. And I've seen just doors just fly open. And I think some because of who you are and what you carry, but I also think some because that consistency I think is huge and has been huge for our church to make sure that we stay showing up,
Yeah, showing up relationally. I mean, because there are things that we've done that have not been the success that like I would have wanted. Sure. But we have the relationship with the school. And so for me to call or walk into the office and say, that didn't go like I'd planned. How can we fix it for next time? Or I'm just saying, I'm sorry, that's not what we anticipated. Yep. And because we've shown up, because we've been able to prove ourselves in so many different things, the school has been really great to say, oh no, we get it. We know what you're going after. Yep. Let's roll up our sleeves and figure out how to make it better next time. So I love it. So it's under promising, over delivering, but knowing that it doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah. Like you're not going to blow it if it's not perfect, as long as you have the relational element in there.
Yep. Now, you talked about, you thought it was going to be hard to get into schools. You thought that was going to be a challenge, and it's actually turned out it's almost the opposite, that we don't have enough churches to get into the schools right now to partner them, and you only have one of you. So what are some of the other cool wins? Like what have you seen God do? What life change have you already seen? What's God been up to?
Yeah, it's been so beautiful to see story after story. So just last week, I have the privilege of on Friday mornings, I go to the school and I deliver our weekend food bags to each of the classrooms. And last week, one of the teachers pulled me over as I walked into her classroom, and she said, "Can we talk for a minute?" And she was really excited. And I said, "Yes, of course." And she said, "I just have to tell you what's happened." And she said, "It happened a year ago, but I just have to share with you. I'm a single mom, and last year I had a deficit in my checkbook, and I didn't know what I was going to do. That week was my son's birthday. He wanted cupcakes. I didn't have the money for it." She said, "But our classroom had partnered with one of your life groups." And so I was just sharing some of the struggles. She didn't share the specifics with the life group of, I need this much money or anything like that. She was just sharing some of the struggles because, again, the life group was in relationship with this teacher. And she, with tears in her eyes, said, I was called up to the front office. And they said, "We have something for you." and somebody from the life group has left an anonymous gift. And she said it was the exact amount to cover what she needed in her checkbook that week, with enough left over to buy her son cupcakes for his birthday. Which I love. God's provision is so beautiful that he would put on the heart of one of our church members, give this money, to do so anonymously and to show up just on time. And she said, really, I want to share my testimony, not just with Riverside, but with everybody. Can you make it happen? And so I'm so excited. We're gonna take a camera over so she can share. She wants to share the story of this far and wide. And I'm going to leave some teasers. She has more stories that will come out when we film her. But I really want them to come from her mouth, because she says, as a parent and as a teacher, I've seen what this partnership does. And I just have to tell people what a difference it makes when a church supports a school like the way you guys have.
I love that. I love it. And what have you seen from maybe how has it been partnering with an administration, not just the teachers? Like, what's that partnership been like? What do you think have been going well? What are some wins there?
Well, really, from day one, Principal Nader has been amazing. She opened the doors to us, which she didn't have to. I mean, we both said that this is a privilege that we got in. But the school the administration has been really amazing to work with. And I feel like one of them now, so much so that when I was thinking about starting the Imagine Initiative, they were one of the first ones I talked to, the principal and the assistant principal and the bookkeeper there, who is a great connection for us. And I said, I'm just thinking of doing this, and I don't want to do it if it's not something that you guys think would be useful or helpful, or like we can keep things going the way they are. And we talked about it. And at that meeting, Principal Nader said, well, we'll have to get you an office. And she laughed. And I thought, wait, did she mean that? Or was that I didn't know. And so when I stepped into Imagine full time, I now have a place that's mine. I have a whole classroom that they have given me to use. My name's on the door, which is just incredible. And within that classroom, we house the weekend food bags. It's a place for me to make calls to families. We have the clothing uniform closet for the kids. We have a pantry for teachers to have snacks for their classroom. Other supplies that we need for special events. And it's just so wonderful to walk in to the school in the morning and just feel very welcomed. And they're very open. And they're my friends now, and I work with them. And for them to offer this classroom as a place for me to work out of a couple days a week is just, it's mind-boggling to me.
That's amazing. No, that's awesome. What are some ways? So I know we've talked a lot about getting into the school is kind of a step one, right? To build relationship, but with the full final goal is really community, getting into the lives of the community and the parents. And how do you take what you're doing in the school, the weekend food bags and the parties that you do for the teachers and the attendance parties for kids, all this cool stuff? How do you do that? And what's the hope and plan to get into community and parents, and how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, so we've already started dabbling just a little with that, with community family movie nights that we're hosting that we hosted at the Edgewood campus, and that was really a lot of fun. I mean, the first one, we didn't know what to expect. I was thinking maybe 50. I planned for 250, thinking I'll just be safe. And I think at 450 people, I just stopped counting. But I think that community, this just applies to any school and any community, is we were able to look and because we've been at the school every day, and I say we because we have volunteers that are in the classroom. So I'm hearing classroom volunteers tell me stories as well. So we're starting to understand the needs of the community. And we want to meet those needs as a way to build relationship with them.
Yeah.
And so particularly for Edgewood, we're going to do a summer camp as a kind of a kickoff to what will be regular outreaches. And then in the fall, we're hoping to start, we don't have a name for it yet. This is just all kind of new, but for lack of anything better, a dinner church. I'm praying for a food truck of all things, a food truck so we can pull up. And I want Riverside people and families in the Edgewood community sitting down, eating a meal together on a weekly basis, building relationship, getting to know each other. Again, earning the right to have conversations. And from there, I believe it will grow into something deeper. In fact, I've seen it happen in other parts of the country where churches are doing this. And just up in Cape Coral, this happened. They were having a dinner church. They've been consistent with their presence. And one of the women there said, well, when can we have English lessons? And she said, great, whose home is it going to be in? So one of the women in the community now opens her home up to 10 women, and they're all learning English together. So I think it'll grow. But for us in the Edgewood community, it's step one will be this camp with a kickoff to what will be our weekly dinner church model. But for every church partnering with a school, to part of the support and resourcing will give to challenge the churches to say, look at what your community is. Yep. What are the needs? How can you engage people in a real way that will build relationships so you can earn the right to have conversations with people?
That's awesome. So obviously here at Riverside, we're deeply connected to Edgewood, and we're going to keep that. We love them. We love that school, love that community. As far as Imagine is way bigger than Edgewood and Riverside. And so what are your hopes, dreams? What are your, you told us kind of the 10-year vision of God, 95 schools and by 2033. What are you hoping over the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years? What's kind of the short-term goals for Imagine? What do you hope to see?
Yeah, well, the first thing as it applies to Riverside is I'm really praying and looking for people that will take over certain aspects of what we're doing at Edgewood right now, like the weekend food bags and other parts of that. Because Edgewood, I believe, our relationship with Edgewood will be a model to other churches for what is and what can be possible. And then really for Imagine, to continue to get with churches, to cast vision, to provide a network of resources for church, or a network that can provide resources for churches. And honestly, I know I said 95 by 33, but I really believe this is something that is going to grow beyond Lee County. I think it's going to change Southwest Florida. And honestly, I've had churches in other parts of the U.S. say, we're in, can you help us? And for me, it's a bandwidth issue. So trying to set up the ministry in a way that it will be able to grow, to be able to help churches around the United States know how to engage deeply with their schools. I'm excited, too, because what we've been able to do at Edgewood is something that even I'm hearing from church leaders that are deeply engaged with their schools and their community. They all ask me the same question. We're doing the weekend food bags. We're doing the teacher lunches. We have not gotten in relationally in the classrooms. How have you done that? And so I think that Imagine can help train churches to know how to do that relational component, which is just super unique. Yeah,
that's amazing. And so if our church wants to get involved, I know you said they can get involved deeper into Edgewood, but what about kind of both? I want to help split these a little bit, because Edgewood is kind of the thing that we want to do as a church. We want to really sponsor and support and adopt everything Edgewood. But also if they want to get involved in Imagine, that's even bigger than that. It is Edgewood, but it's even bigger. What are some ways that they can do that? How could they get engaged? How could they get involved with Imagine?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have volunteer opportunities. Some are functioning behind the scenes kind of volunteer needs. Just had somebody step up and said, I will take care of your bookkeeping, which was an answer to prayer. Thank you, Jesus.
Come on.
So I'm looking for people who can help with administrative, like I'm looking for a volunteer who can help me with administrative tasks. I'm looking for a volunteer that can help me with, I'm calling it warehouse management, just because I get so many in-kind donations that I'm hoping will start going out to other schools. We'll have volunteer opportunities for different events that we're going to be hosting for churches, and then support. A lot of people have asked me, like, oh, you're on staff now at Riverside. So I'm not on staff. I am raising support like all of our other missionaries. And so, support raising is a huge part of it as well. And I only say that to just clear up, because I'm not on staff. Missionaries stepping out in faith, raising support for this work that God's called me to.
Yep. That's awesome. Any final words that you would encourage? So our body, what would you say if they're saying, man, I want to get involved in missions, they're kind of on the fence, they're trying to figure this stuff out, anything that you would do to encourage them? What would it look like to take a step? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I love that question. I think a lot of times we think we have to have everything figured out. Oh, I've got to know exactly what to do. And I don't think that that's actually what Jesus called us to. He just called us to say yes and then take the next step. You may not know what the next step all entails or looks like. For people, maybe it's just saying, I'm going to talk to somebody, because sometimes just verbalizing the fact that you feel like God's stirring up something in your heart, just that verbalization is something that's kind of cements the process. Like, okay, I've said it, now I'm moving forward.
Yep.
And then if you've done that, or you say yes, I would say pray. I mean, intentional prayer. Spend time in prayer. Speak to somebody about what you're praying about. And again, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to say yes and do the next thing that God puts in front of you. I don't know a lot of missionaries who said, oh yeah, God laid the whole plan out for me. Or people that, business people that have this incredible influence for missions, even within their business and their business network. They didn't understand what it would look like, but they started with a yes, and it could be small. I'm gonna do a Bible study at lunch once a week in my office, or God's calling me to volunteer once a week with this mission organization. It may not seem big, but your yes, God will grow you. He'll develop that within you, and He'll show you the next step. So say yes, keep showing up, be faithful, and our God's really good to point us in the right direction.
Yeah. Rhonda, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do and following in obedience what God's asked you to do. And thank you for leading us in what it looks like to partner with schools. We're so excited to be able to do that alongside you. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me today. I loved it.
Yeah. The rest of y'all, tune in next week as we continue in our Mission Partner series, and we get to talk to another mission partner about what they do, how they got into that calling, and what the Lord's got for them next. Y'all take care.